Aaron Burnett out front. Tomorrow night at 7 Eastern on CNN.
I'm Don Lemon. You're watching CNN's breaking news coverage of Baltimore. The police are enforcing a curfew now. It is almost the top of the hour. My colleagues are out on the street, including our very own Chris Cuomo, who has been watching this all unfold with me tonight. Chris, what are you seeing where you are? How many people are we seeing out there as opposed to police?
None. The big intersection where everybody was is cleared now for a couple of blocks. There's a lot of media here, but those who are supposed to be respecting the curfew are largely gone. They've moved down side streets, and different detachments of the officers have moved there as well. The officers have been moving very methodically, holding the line. They're now calling up some of their own reinforcements from other situations. A couple of people have been taken into custody, but so far this has been, thankfully, very uneventful in terms of violence.
Yeah, and that is good news at this point. I'm here with my law enforcement experts, and we are watching this, again, all unfold as we just get close to the top of the hour here. We see the police officers, very few people out on the street, according to our Chris Cuomo, none, he says, out on the street. And many of them driven off of these major intersections by police officers, and you see them in their tactical gear as they have been on several corners, the most affected areas of the city throughout the evening and really throughout the day here. But again, that curfew going into effect 1 hour ago.
This is CNN Breaking News.
It is 11 p.m. here in Baltimore. Our breaking news. This city is under curfew until 5 a.m. Until 5 a.m. Police appear to be getting the upper hand right now as they enforce this curfew. 2,000 National Guardsmen, more than 1,000 police officers out on the streets of Baltimore tonight after a day of largely peaceful protests. Everybody from the White House to the people of Baltimore calling for calm tonight. I want to go now straight to CNN's Miguel Marquez. Miguel has been out in all of this as well. What are you seeing, Miguel?
Well, we're seeing the acts of defiance in the neighborhoods around where people were earlier. We actually flew down to South Baltimore because we understood that there was some rioting down there. There is not. I want you to look right up the street here. This is Pennsylvania Avenue. This is the street that we marched down on Saturday all the way down to downtown. That is where the phalanx of officers is starting to move down along with heavy equipment. And if you come around this way, this is Pennsylvania Avenue. You can see it's been trashed to some degree. All the trash cans thrown in the streets. They're trying to block the streets. And in the streets themselves, there are individuals who are defying police orders. The police cars are roaming through the area. They are announcing to the individuals that they see in this area that it is time to get off the streets. Here we have yet another armored vehicle coming up. We've seen them from Montgomery County, from Anne Arundel County, from Baltimore County. You can see that this one, several of them were hit by paint in recent days and eggs and just about everything else. But still a lot of cars on the streets and still a lot of individuals on the streets that police are trying to get home. To get them to go home by mainly having a very heavy force. When we first got out of the car about 5-10 minutes ago here, there was a very heavy smell of pepper spray. You could feel it in your throat. That seems to be dissipating. They don't seem to be using that anymore. They are holding in place, taking a few steps every now and again, moving into these neighborhoods. We just went by Western District, which had been the focal point for a lot of the peaceful protests over the last 14 days or so. They have pushed back even farther now, about 2 blocks, the security perimeter around that police station. The site where Freddie Gray was arrested, which is also a hot spot around here. Almost nobody there, but there are people in the neighborhood saying that they are going to stay out and defy police orders. Don?
All right, Miguel, I want you to stand by because we're going to need you throughout the evening here on CNN. I want to get back now to CNN's Ryan Young, who is covering this story for us as well and has been out on the streets of Baltimore. Ryan, take us to your location and tell us what you're seeing.
Don, we are down west north, and this was the rally point after we had to run away from that gas. Tear gas hit us. It was very strong. It was hard for us to breathe. That seemed to push a lot of people who were hanging around this back end away. Now, we've had a few people now come back out after that gas has dissipated, but once it got into your lungs, I can tell you there were a lot of people who were saying they were not going to leave, and that really changed their minds. It's hard to breathe. In fact, you faced that before, so you understand what I'm talking about, how it gets your eyes and your lungs. Right now, there's a few people hanging out, playing some music in the distance over here, but there's a lot of media standing down this way. They've cleared out the streets remarkably in the last 30 minutes or so. We've had police and small patrol units kind of working their way through the side streets just to make sure none of the larger crowds were hanging around anymore. It has really changed in the last hour. I tell you, throughout the day, we weren't really messed with, but that last hour, you could tell that people were getting angry about the idea of a curfew, and they were voicing their opinions to us as we were walking around with our camera. Now, after the gas has been spread, people have definitely started running home, and they're no longer here in the streets.
All right. I want you to stand by, Ryan Young. I want to get to CNN's Jason Carroll now. Jason also out on the streets. Jason, take us there.
Well, just a few moments ago, we heard one of the commanding officers walk up and down the line here, telling them to hold their position. We were standing on this corner that you see over here, and then one of the officers said, reporter, this corner is now ours, move. So that's exactly what we did. We moved off that corner. It's calm now here, at least for the moment, here at Pennsylvania and North, where we've been all day ever since early this morning. Just down the side street here, we did see a small number of people come out, throw some projectiles, then run back down a small alley there. We did hear also at one point that more reinforcements would be brought in, but at this point, it doesn't seem to be necessary, at least not for where we are, not for right now. I know a little earlier, Don, you heard me talk to one of the community leaders who was walking up and down this front line that you see here, telling people to go home, talking over the loudspeaker, telling people to pay attention and to the pay attention to the curfew that was in effect at 10 o'clock. And then I saw her just a few moments ago. She had tears in her eyes. It was heartbreaking, actually, to see that, because she tried so desperately to prevent something like this from happening. Still, I think some people will look at this and say, not as bad as it could have been. The police response out here, very measured, considering what was going on, because at one point when we were standing out here, there were a number of people throwing glass bottles, they were throwing water bottles, other things at these officers. They kept their line, and they were measured throughout the night. Don.
All right. Thank you very much, Jason Carroll. Jason, stay with us as well. I want to get to my colleague, Brian Todd. CNN's Brian Todd. Brian, tell us what you're seeing and where you are.
Don, we are approaching the intersection where we're seeing a large crowd of people kind of in a standoff with police here at Pennsylvania and North Avenues. Trying to make our way a little bit closer in here to the police. This is a large phalanx of police officers here as we make our way. The officers are getting commands here. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing, but we were here earlier. We were also out earlier marching with a couple of hundred protesters who started here, by the way, and marched several miles around this Gilmore neighborhood of West Baltimore, downtown, and then back here. And it was a very dynamic situation. It did get tense. There were volunteers out here earlier, Don, who were keeping the crowd back from police and were telling young people as the curfew approached to leave, and almost physically, moving the young people out of the way, the children out of the way, getting them down the street toward their homes. And it appeared to be a more festive atmosphere, a more responsible atmosphere than we've seen in the last few minutes. Not sure exactly what escalated the situation now, but it is a departure from what happened earlier. And as Jason mentioned a short time ago, it seems to have calmed down now, and the police response has been fairly measured, and the crowd's response in backing off has been measured as well, we have to say, at this point, Don.